I'm Jake Thompson, and this is the Better Than Yesterday podcast. What's up, competitors? Happy Tuesday. I hope the month of June has started strong for you. Man, we're almost halfway through 2017. Can you believe it? I feel like just yesterday was January, and now all of a sudden we're in June, middle of the heat and blistering summer in Texas. But man, there's still so much time left in this year to reach the goals that you've set, to do the things you want to accomplish. And if for some reason you've fallen short of a goal already, you still have 7 months to either get back after it, still time to achieve it, or if it's a goal for 2018, you get a head start on competing for it right now. There's no time for whining. There's no time for pity parties. There's only time to compete. So I'm going to encourage you with that. As this week I get to bring in Dr. Daren Martin. Daren and I got connected through a mutual friend, Jason DeMayo, who sat next to Daren on a flight back from Asia. The two guys got to talking, had a great conversation, and immediately Jason's reaching out to me of, you got to connect with Daren. Daren, he's telling him to connect with me. And so the two of us had the opportunity to grab coffee, talk shop. I was a guest on his podcast show, the Daren Martin Show, where we just sat around a table and talked a little bit about the compete message. And so today I get to bring him on. I came over to his house. We're going to sit down with a cup of coffee, talk about a couple of his books, and really this idea of leaving the world a better place than when you found it. And what are some things that we can do each and every day to be better, but as well leave our space, our community, our relationships better. I think this is one of the more fun conversations I've had because Daren and I just get to sit at the table and jam. So I hope you find some value. I hope you enjoy this conversation with Dallas's own Dr. Daren Martin. Dr. Daren Martin is with us today. How are you this morning?
I am fantastic. Anytime I get to hang out with the great Jake, I'm awesome.
It's Cinco de Mayo as well. No tequila or margaritas kicking us off just yet.
I totally spaced that. I do have some Modelo Especial in the fridge if you want to break one of those open.
10 a.m. maybe a little early for us
just
today.
A tad.
Well, I wanted to get you on the show. I had the opportunity to get on your show, and we got connected through a mutual friend, Jason DeMayo, and I found out we had a lot of mutual friends. And so you've written a number of books. We've chatted about them. And so first, I'm going to have you introduce yourself, and then I want to dive in and share a little bit more on some of your work.
Okay, awesome. So Daren Martin, obviously, got a PhD in psychology, ran my own business for 20 years. About 10 years ago, went into the consulting route. And about a year ago, well, much earlier, I started publishing a year ago, but started writing about my experiences being in and out of bunch of companies, Fortune 500, small mom and pop. And so I put out crazy, but 4 books in the last year, 2 last February and 2 this February. I'm on a roll.
You are. And I love the fact that they're not bite-sized, but they're shorter. I mean, some of them are like the one we want to talk about today, The Sink, is super quick, easy read. The content is deep, but it's brief.
That's the shortest of all of them. I haven't actually timed the read, but I want to say you can probably read that book in 12 minutes. It's that one's more of a teaching tale. I mean, the other ones are also brief. I think the audio books on the other ones come out at about an hour and 15 minutes, something like that, if you just read it. But yeah, The Sink is short and sweet, and it's intended to be that way, just a little teaching tale about leaving things better than you found it.
And so what inspired you to start writing, and then obviously writing on a roll to crank out that many that quick?
So the writing, as I said, began a long time ago. Really what jumped me off in the direction of starting to put them out was I went through a bit of an epiphany 3-4 years ago, and I decided I was tired of talking about what I was going to do, and I wanted to start doing it. And so I just set some deadlines and just set my mind on, okay, forget it. I have a buddy who says production before perfection, and I can be one of those guys who just keeps tweaking and working on it. So I started moving things along. And what I discovered was when you when you actually start working on it, it comes together. It's that thinking about working on it. So I put a couple books out last year, Whiteboard and A Company of Owners. They've both done well in their own right. Company of Owners is a bit of a beast. It's really resonating. And then I already had 2 more in the bucket, not ready to go, but that I worked on over the last year and then was able to put out in February, and 2 more and 2 more and 2 more coming after that. I don't know why I'm releasing 2 books at a time. I'm not sure I even recommend it, but it just seems to be happening that way, that I've always got a couple of different projects.
Well, it's funny because we talk about momentum and things like that. And for a lot of people, they sit and wait for that motivation to come and magically strike them before they take action. And then you find the motivation and the inspiration once you start taking action. And obviously taking 2 books at a time, you're starting to write, and then everything just starts flowing and flowing and flowing. And you've got multiple ideas and pieces of content and development.
Just producing, I'm working on a deal now where you start the morning by writing 3 pages of anything. It could be gibberish. And what's emerging out of that is a completely different direction. I'm writing, as it turns out, a short story book. That's news breaking right here, Jake. Other than my wife, you're the first person to hear that. But these short stories just started kind of flowing out of me. I can't say enough about just the grit of sitting down and doing it. So I don't know if you've read the book, and I'm blanking on the author's name, but the War of Art.
I've not. It's on my shelf. It's on my list to read this year.
Man, it's such a great push for people who want to produce something and want to, in the art space, the literature space, the book space, whatever it may be. And he just talks about, hey, you've got to suck it up and do it, and just grind it out sometimes, but it will come to you if you will do the work, put the work in.
I love that. I saw an article on, a number of people were sharing it on Facebook. I think it's from russellberger.com, but he was talking about Instagram and being basic, and basic doesn't get you the likes and popularity on Instagram, but you see all these fitness celebrities, and he was using, CrossFit and bodybuilders in that space of showing cheat meals and pumps at the gym, but that's not what got them to that point. It's that basic going in, doing the work, eating the chicken and broccoli, like to just grind.
Right.
Just like on the author side, like it's getting up and writing every single morning to perfect that craft that everybody sees the book. They see you out speaking. They see that the perks of all the work you've put in behind the scenes, but it's that daily grind that's not flattering or popular, that most people don't want to do, that gets you to that point.
Yeah, so people ask me, in fact, I'm starting a mastermind group for people who want to write a book, just because I get this, and you probably get similar questions, but I get 3 or 4 times a week somebody will hit me up and say, hey, I want to write a book. What advice do you have for me? And if I'm doing the shorthand version, my advice comes in one word: write. People will get all prepped up and, what do I have to do? What program should I use? Is it better to write? Just write. Just start writing. The writing I'm doing by hand. I've never written a book by hand tomorrow, but that's kind of tomorrow. I don't know where that came from.
That's your writing. So when you're writing 3 pages every morning, it's by hand. You're not typing.
It's by hand. I got my nifty fountain pen. I'm a huge fountain pen fan, and I'm just scratching it out. And it's amazing to watch that process. Now, obviously, I'll go back, clean that up, and produce it. But it's amazing what flows when you sit down and just actually start doing. The same is true on the computer. I do a lot of my writing on the plane. I've got dedicated time. I'm just sitting there, so might as well produce something. And when I write, then I write. It starts to develop and flow. And the beautiful part about the time we live in is it doesn't have to be perfect on the front end. You've got copy, edit, paste, all sorts of tools that when you were writing a book by hand before, and that was going to be the final deal, then, it probably required a little different level of thinking. But production before perfection, as I said, just start doing something.
I love that. The perfect time will never appear. You just start taking action and things start to happen. I want to talk about The Sync, and I loved the book. Like we mentioned earlier, it's 12 minutes. It would be if it was an audiobook. It's like a podcast episode. But you mentioned briefly it's about making the world a better place than when you came into it. Tell us what inspired you to write that book, And then I definitely have multiple copies I'm going to be giving away to listeners of the show. But I want you to share kind of the heart and a little bit of message behind it so we can kind of pique their interest.
Okay, awesome. So what inspired me to write the book was an incident that happened to the co-author. So Walter Nussbaum was walking, he was in an airport bathroom. He walks into the door, and there's this guy, well-dressed. He's in like a suit and a tie, and he's just pulled some paper towels out, washed his hands, and he's wiping down the counter, right? All of the water on the sink. And Walter comes in and makes some crack like, hey, they sure have well-dressed help around here. And the guy just kind of laughs a little bit and then, just smiles and says, well, you know what they say, why not leave it better than you found it? So the guy walks out, Walter does his business and comes, washes his hands, he gets the paper towel, and guess what Walter does? He's wiping down the sink. And he says he's done that ever since then. I mean, it started him on this path. So he told me the story, and of course then, I started picking up the habit. So I called Walter one day, and I took Austin Kleon's book, Steal Like an Artist, very literally. So I called Walter up one day, and I said, hey, Walter, we wrote a book. And he said, we did? And I said, yeah, it's called The Sink. This is the easiest way to write a book,
That's
right? Get somebody else's content. You do some of the heavy lifting. So I said, yeah, I put this thing together, and I think it's amazing. And I said, I think it's about leaving the world better than you found it. What if we all did that? The punchline kind of the book, it just came into my head, but what if we were all to, leave the world better than we found it, blah, blah, blah. And it goes on. And then the last line of the book, I think, is now go find your sink. Because obviously it's a metaphor. It's not just about bathroom sinks, but it's about people, places, things. I have since been much more cognizant since that book came out of the way, for example, I leave a hotel room. It's really easy to just go, hey, the maid's coming, she's going to clean it up. And you got trash everywhere. And how much does it take to kind of take that stuff, put it in the trash can? So certainly environments it applies to, and we talk about that. I try to clean up messes, and the platinum standard in the book. It's one thing to clean up your own mess. It's an even bigger kind of a sink mentality to clean up other people's messes instead of like, who did this? Well, okay, who cares who left all that on the table at the, restaurant, fast food restaurant? You can pick it up for them. And it just changes for me. It's a deal changer in attitude about the way we leave things. I think even more importantly though, than the physical environment, and obviously that would also get into all sorts of environmental things, planting flowers in the front of your house that everybody can enjoy and, doing things like that. But I think it applies even more to the way we leave people. Are people more energized, more passionate about life, feeling better about themselves when they walk away from interacting with us? Or are they dragged down, defeated, feeling less happy about life? And to me, that's where the real kicker comes in.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that's something I've gathered, obviously, from our interactions that you're just very aware of and attuned to and try to do. And I loved the metaphor of the sink because it's very simple. I mean, literally taking the paper towels, cleaning a sink after you wash your hands is something so basic that too often I think many of us get trapped in the mindset that we can't do everything. Mm-hmm. So we don't do anything.
Right.
Instead of just focusing on what you immediately touch, control, who you interact with on a day-to-day basis, you can impact and influence those people in a very simple manner that can positively impact or influence how they spend the rest of their day.
Yeah, exactly. By the way, probably the only time I don't do that when I'm in a bathroom these days. Well, there are two. I've hit a snag. There are bathrooms that only have the blow dryers, and you're just flat out of luck. There's nothing you can do. But the only other time I don't do it is when I happen to be in a bathroom with Walter, because I'll wad up the paper towels and throw them on the floor just to see. He's like, Martin, you can't do that. We wrote a book about this. But yeah, they actually did an experiment. I think this is it's maybe in a company of owners, but they did an experiment in a company, and they took a well-traveled hallway and wadded up a piece of paper, threw it in the floor, and then just watched person after person walk by. And it was that rare individual who stopped, picked up the piece of paper, went to the trash can, threw it away, and then they went and interviewed that person, said, hey, why'd you do that? And invariably they said something like, hey, this is my house. This is my place. This is my company. We got to take care of this. And that's just a completely different mindset than I think most people have grown accustomed to. We don't treat the people around us like we're stewards of who they are and how they experience life. We don't treat environments like, it's ours. And people go, oh, well, I don't own the company. Why, big deal. No, that's not the point. The point is that we do, and we are coexisting together. And the better we leave it for the people behind us, the better off we all are.
Absolutely. And that actually brings us kind of to the other book I wanted to talk about is, you mentioned the person that picked it up mentioned that this is my home, this is ours. And that's a central theme in a lot of the work you do with Company of Owners and your other books of the ownership throughout the team, that it's an our, we're in this together kind of thing. Beached Whale I enjoyed because it was a compare and contrast book.
Yeah.
The whole time. And so you'd read something about what a beached whale is from a corporate standpoint, and then what it would look like differently. What could it look like? What it is and what it could be. What inspired you to write that book, and how have you found that approach, that thinking on a corporate side is also translated to you individually, or you've seen in others individually?
Oh yeah, huge. Of course, the book is almost exclusively corporation, but there are huge connections for who we are as people. So, yeah, it's called Beached Whale, Learning to Swim in the New Ocean. As I talk about, hey, the world as we know it is over. And if you're operating business as usual, you miss the memo. And, my favorite, the very first, and it goes, as you said, it's a beached, unbeached, like it goes back and forth. The first indicator you're a beached whale company is if you walk around and there's a Dilbert cartoon on every cubicle, right? And here's how you unbeach. Go find out what people are trying to tell you, what's wrong, so forth. Well, the same is true for us as individuals, and it's been a tricky little book because people hear beached whale and they get all sorts of other connotations. And I realized the other night, I don't know why you're getting all my epiphanies on this show. That's just how good you are, Jake, as an interviewer. But the other night, my wife and I were sitting outside, and she was talking about it, and we just had this epiphany. I titled the book wrong. Instead of Beached Whale, it should have been Unbeach. The happy whale that's on the back cover should have been on the front cover, because we sell solutions, not problems, right? And people don't want to feel bad about where they are. They want to know how to get somewhere else. And I mean, you get this with obviously what you do. You inspire and encourage people on a regular basis. Love the shirt, by the way, that you sent me. And I love the fact that it's got this little coded message on the inside of the back. And it's amazing. It's just a super soft. I wore it like for 5 days the other day in a row until it started stinking. So, but the beached whale people, there's an old adage, grow or die.
Yep.
And people just, you're a beached person if you're still doing everything the same way, with the same attitudes, with the same level of thinking, in the same manner that you've done it for the last 20 years.
And you get the same results.
We're not intended to be that way. We are intended to be vibrant life. We are the light of the world. We're intended to be growing and developing and constantly, elevating our game. It's it's like reading. I talk to people who don't read. I can't tell you how much reading changes me. Readers are leaders, and a big fan of it. But there are a lot of individuals out there that are just stuck. They're stuck in, pause mode of the way they ended up being, and life sucks, and they're just down about everything, or whatever the case may be. And you don't want to be that way. That's like a incredible, animal, like a whale that is capable of, beautiful things in the ocean when it's set free. But when it's sitting on a sand dune, it's just stuck.
Sounds like we've got a sequel to Beached Whale, and you'll just do it the reverse. You'll put the back on. You got a part two.
I haven't talked to my publisher yet and a printer, but it's just going to be a reprint at some point when I get all of the beached whales out the door and do a reprint. I just did on a Company of Owners. I got to make some changes, and I'm gonna completely flip flop that.
Oh, I love it. So, speaking of unbeaching yourself and constantly looking for ways to grow and learn and develop, what do you do on a daily or monthly basis to ensure that you're constantly growing personal life?
So a couple of things. One is when I am able to, which is pretty much any time we're home, I try to guard and protect those early mornings. I like to get up as early as I can. Best days are when it's, before the sun is up. That's doesn't always happen that way. And I just carve out some time. Come down, make coffee, bring a cup of coffee up, and then I've got a big stack of books that are more oriented around kind of who we are, our spirit, kind of who we are as people. They're not business books. These are just, things to get your brain and heart kind of aligned and going in the same direction. And they're, kind of all over the map, subject matter wise. But I'll read. So talk about reading. I've been doing this writing thing that I told you, getting some alignment out of that. And then throughout the day, looking for opportunities to learn. I've got a picture in Whiteboard, and it says BA, and then it's got a question mark, not an exclamation point. And most people, and I've found myself being this way at times, are exclamation points. I know what I know what I know. That's my opinion on this. That's the way it is.
Yeah.
This is the way things are. I actually just did a 15-minute broadcast for a very large, one of the big four accounting firms, and it's about inclusion and collaboration and just getting outside that narrow little box that we can get in where we think about things in a certain way. So, the biggest thing for me is being more curious than dogmatic about new things, new people, new ideas. And I find that is a much more fulfilling way to live. And I also, I grow more as a person when I'm listening to other people instead of just, no, this is wrong.
I like that. I'll have to send you, there's an interview with Tom Bilyeu, who's one of the co-founders of Quest Nutrition. And he's launched his own brand, Impact Theory, and doing videos. But I've heard him speak at a couple of events over the last really month. And he talked about for a majority of his life, he was so focused on being rich, having a six-pack, and being right. And it wasn't about learning. It wasn't about growing in that area. He just wanted to be smart and right. And it finally led him into a position with his company and his two partners where he was adamant about convincing him he was right, even though it wasn't best for the company. And when he finally convinced him, he was like, shit.
Man.
He's like, I got him to tell me I'm right. This is the right position, but this is not best for us.
Ooh,
and so
you could be so right and so wrong. And I've had those moments.
And it changed. I think that moment, I don't know what ended up coming out of it. He's never really shared the details, but that moment just flipped him. And he was like, from that point on, he wanted to just be a learner. He was like, I don't care if I'm the smartest person in the room. It's okay if you tell me I don't know it, because then I can go learn it.
No, look, if you, I came up with this a while back, but if you're the smartest person in the room, if you think you consistently are, eventually you'll be the only person in the room. And another thing I came out with, and this is just, based on experiences, but beware the person who's always the teacher, never the student.
Yep.
And now the only thing I do agree with him on in terms of a life ambition is having a six-pack. Oh, wait, you mean the other kind of six-pack?
Yes.
You mean the Jake kind of six-pack?
No, the Cinco de Mayo,
sure,
the Corona
don't kid
Light.
yourself. I meant the Cinco de Mayo kind of six-pack. That's not what he meant. I got it.
But yeah, he's a fascinating character. But I'll remember that because I was like, man, that's a great lesson. And it just goes back to the idea of constantly growing. And if you think you're the smartest person in the room, you're obviously not, and you're selling yourself a little short of what you could be, and that growth. I love that. This has been fun. So if people want to connect, maybe somebody's listening and they're like, man, I want to learn more. What maybe my team or company can learn from this guy, or people just want to start following you to learn from you and connect. Where are the best places for them to find you online or on social media?
So the key is just spell my first name right. Thank you to my parents for giving me a little odd spelling. Helps in the age of social media.
That's right.
But it's Daren and then Martin, Martin. So it's DarenMartin.com. I have a podcast as well that you've been on. You can go listen to The Great Jake, and you're going to be on there many, many more times, called obnoxiously The Daren Martin Show.
Hey, we'll sit and have beers next time.
Yeah, I love it. There's, everything else, Instagram, all the outlets, Facebook, all that. If you just Google Daren Martin with the spelling right, you'll probably find me. Obviously, the books are on Amazon, on Kindle, and I'm working on the Audible versions. I've got Audible of Company of Owners, but I'm working on, in fact, today I'm going to record Beached Whale and some of the other ones. So,
well, we're going to be giving away a few copies of The Sync. And so to be eligible, we're going to need you to comment, leave us a review on iTunes, comment what you love about the show, and then also go check out Daren's show as well. Leave us a comment that you were able to check his out, and then we'll be picking a lucky winner at random this week. Actually, 3 lucky winners at random this week to receive a book and some other goodies from Compete. So, Daren, thanks for being on the show.
Yeah, awesome. I'm gonna go make comments and so forth, hoping to get another Compete shirt.
There we go.
I'm just gonna go buy some. How's that?
That'll work too. And that wraps up another episode of the Better Than Yesterday podcast. I hope you caught the tips for the giveaway of these books. I've got multiple copies of Daren's book, The Sync, and I would absolutely love to get one in your hands to encourage you and challenge you with some ways that you can make the world better, make your sync in this world better. And so to be eligible to receive one of those copies or to be eligible for the drawing and to receive one of those copies, I need you to do a couple of things. One, you got to subscribe to the Better Than Yesterday podcast. If you're already subscribed, boom, you've got a leg up. If you are not, click that subscribe button on your iPhone, go to iTunes, select that option, but subscribe to the show, give us a little bit of love. Number 2, I need you to leave a comment on the podcast show on iTunes, ratings and reviews. Give us a rating, give us a review. We read all of those for feedback, but in this term, it's going to help us out. Choose someone to give this book, a copy of this book away to. And finally, go over to Dr. Daren Martin, the Daren Martin podcast. Check it out. You can find me on one of the episodes. He's had a ton of guests. Listen to an episode or 2 of his show. Give him a subscribe as well. We're going to pick some lucky winners to receive copies of The Sync so that they can find a way to clean their sink, improve their relationships and community, and keep being better than yesterday. As always, to reach the show, drop us a note at podcast@competeeveryday.com. I would love to hear from you. You can reach me directly if you want through that email or on social media. Just say hi. On Instagram, Life is Worth Competing For is my handle, and I always love interacting with fans of the show. Let us know who you want to hear from on the show, who you would love to see as a guest, or some topics you'd like us to deep dive into. As always, keep competing, keep pursuing greatness, and finding ways that you can be better than yesterday.